because according to the government, we are promoting subversive and terrorist ideas. Okay, well, I guess to begin with, and especially for German audiences, it's important to note that the Philippines has been locked in one of the longest, the longest running armed insurgency for the last 50 years, over 50 years actually. This was started by the Communist Party of the Philippines back in the mid-60s. And the Communist Party was founded by José María Sison, or Joma Sison, who alongside his wife Julie de Lima pretty much kickstarted what is, and outlined what is the picture or the image of what the revolution is today in the Philippines. To me personally, as a young activist from the Philippines, as a teenager, Joma was pretty much ubiquitous. So it's impossible not to read his work, to learn about his ideas, to encounter him. And even back then, back then we had Skype, for example, not yet Zoom, but we had Skype to in huge assembly halls, just so we can talk and hear lectures from Joma about organizing, about waging revolution in the countryside and in the cities as well. And so Joma, up until his death in December 2022, he was pretty much let's say he was a very accessible consultant to all things organizing and revolution. And to me, for example, as a journalist, he was a very good person to interview. Well, first off, like writing this book, and also I wanted to say that this book is not just about Joma, but it's also equally about his wife, Julie, who has also made some invaluable contributions to the Filipino struggle. But writing this, in the beginning especially, a lot of it was sort of looking what to avoid, or trying to see what I should avoid, because a lot of literature has already been written about the Philippine left and the Philippine Revolution. Joma himself has, of course, written a lot of literature, but I mean, like I said, coming from this as sort of my own, I guess, fascination as a young activist several years ago. This was sort of getting to know the human side of revolutionaries, which is not to draw away from the political side, but actually to get closer to the political side, to know these people as humans, what they endure as revolutionaries, and why they endure it. I think a lot of people, I mean, that might be very complimentary also, but I think a lot of Filipinos also seek to learn from themselves and their own mistakes and sort of piece together, because there is this seesawing of struggle as well. I mean, I am not in the NPA or the New People's Army. I'm not engaged in armed struggle, but as a journalist, this is something I cover often. And of course the mass movement in the cities as well. But there has been, some would say there has been a bit of a drop-off as well during the pandemic, the lockdown. Because we had the Philippines, I think you have to understand that the Philippines had the longest lockdown in the world. So for many of us, it took 2 or almost 3 years to come out of our houses. And this was 2 or 3 years spent with where your organizing work is severe and your political work is severely limited. And so that impacted a lot. But it's now, I think this year, I'd say that the mass movement in the cities has begun to sort of gain a little bit more momentum. And at the same time, the period of President Duterte was sort of also a period of amassing a lot of military strength, developing new tactics against not just guerrilla fighters, but also new tactics against activists in the cities and organizers in the cities. So it's been this sort of seesaw between the government and progressive forces and even revolutionary forces. But still today, the Philippine government under President Marcos feels that the communist threat or the guerrilla threat from the countryside is pretty much the biggest threat to its government and to its stability. And why do I say this? It's not although the presidential spokesperson under Duterte admitted that, but I don't think government officials will often admit that they're threatened or afraid of revolutionary forces. But I say that because consistently, one of the top priorities of each Philippine regime has been counterinsurgency. So it has been stopping critics, whether they be armed or not, to stop the spread of more criticism and more sympathy towards armed movements. Well, actually, you're right. No, I'm sort of not shy about my sympathies because I think, and I don't make any secret of this. I was for a long time also a community organizer. My mother was also part of the NPA when she was alive, and like growing Joma's name was something. Joma and Julie's. These were names, and so many others. These were names that I've been hearing since I was very small. But as a journalist growing up, I mean, working as a journalist, I feel like it's always, I mean, of course, it's always the facts that make arguments stronger. And I can attest to that. I'm pretty sure all of my articles are factual. I did not plagiarize or fabricate anything. But you're right. No, it does. The state repression affects everyone, including journalists. I wouldn't say especially journalists, but journalists are definitely among those who are affected by state repression. If I can share a bit, like a quick story. Sure. This was a little bit before right before the pandemic, where already red tagging was a big issue in the Philippines. Because to be a communist in the Philippines is technically not illegal. To carry arms is illegal. So ideology is not, but ideological acts that carry threats are technically illegal. And for long, but in the government's eyes, this is actually there's no difference between the two. Either you're a critic, you're automatically a communist, or you're automatically a terrorist, and to them it's the same thing. And so this was heavily discussed in the Philippine Senate. At one point, they were saying that young people, underage people, that the terrorist recruitment has happening in the Philippines. Actually, they're still saying it. The terrorist recruitment is rife in universities, and so I was at the Senate covering the Senate proceedings, taking my notes, and sitting beside other journalists who were also doing their jobs, and suddenly one of the staff or personnel of Senator Bato de la Rosa was Duterte's right-hand man in the police. They come up and they say that, sir, we have this presentation we'd like to show about the top recruiters of terrorists. So I continue just taking my notes, and then the first name is somebody I know. It's like, oh, I know that person. Second name is somebody I know. The third person is me. And then, but of course, one of the another veteran journalist, an older journalist, she just sat beside me, and she's very nice, and she said, maybe you should leave now. I said, yeah, maybe. So I just quietly left the room, but afterwards, other journalists told me that they were looking for you after. And then the next day on state news, that said that Michael Beltran was covering the Senate, spying on the Senate proceedings. I said, it's a public proceeding. How can I be spying? It's even live on TV. But yeah, so that's, but this is like just one of the things that journalists go through. There are journalists, colleagues of mine, who are also in jail, who have been murdered and persecuted in many different ways now. I think also maybe a lot of people don't understand that the Philippines was for quite a number of years was an American colony. So even the Americans pretty much established what is a lot of our basic societal institutions, our constitution, our public school system, and so many different things. And so there is a lot of American imperialism is very sort of entrenched in Philippine society, and so it's easy for America or for Washington to spread paranoia and fear against China, that China is the enemy, etc., and China is going to bring doom rain fire upon us and we should fight China. Even if for most of Philippine history, and I mean, I'm not saying China isn't a threat, it is, but I'm saying that for most of Philippine history and up until the present, Americans have done a lot more damage and harm to the Filipino people and to the Philippine soil. And so, yes, we are caught in this sort of bind in between these two superpowers. And there is, I think, inevitably, there's sometimes a lot of talk about, oh, which do you support? Do you support the Americans or the Chinese? But it's a little bit like choosing which god to worship. And in fact, I think I guess the more progressive choice would be to how do we support ourselves independently, away from the imperialist interests of these two big countries. No? But yes, it's definitely. Right now, there's a big corruption scandal, so I guess that U.S.-China foreign relations in the Philippines isn't such a big deal at the moment, but definitely it's something that comes up every so often, especially when there is some sort of aggression happening in the West Philippine Sea. Officially, officially American military presence is only a rotational presence in the Philippines, and officially they only are able to consult with the Philippine military forces on tactics and operations. But periodically there are murmurs and there are sort of rumblings of that the U.S. military forces have been directly participating in operations against counterinsurgency, and this isn't something new. No, this is something that directly happened also many times in the decades past, especially during the administration of Marcos Sr. during the martial law period. So, and of course, it's the U.S. and Israel, which are the two biggest arms suppliers to the Philippine military. And so, whether directly is somewhat unverifiable at the moment, although plausible, but indirectly there is definitely American military involvement and drive in local Philippine military operations, whether it is masked in this sort of anti-China operation and drills, or it is directly used by the military in repression or in counterinsurgency efforts through different kinds of offensives. I mean, I'm a journalist. I work with, just to sort of plug our own work, I work with a newspaper called Pinoy Weekly, and we are a volunteer-run progressive newspaper spotlighting the voices of marginalized Filipinos in Filipino. And so every week we print a news magazine that we deliver for free to a lot of poor communities and underprivileged communities, marginalized communities, and communities in resistance as well. Since 2022, the government has also shut down our website, so we have a mirror site to make up for that. But our official site is, if you go to pinoyweekly.org in the Philippines, you can visit it in Germany. Mm-hmm. But if you go to our official website in the Philippines, you won't be able to access it because according to the government, we are promoting subversive and terrorist ideas. And another, if anybody wants to get involved in any kind of support for Filipino struggles, there are a number of organizations already in Germany. I suggest you can get in touch with any one of them, and Germans are always welcome to come to the Philippines themselves, experience, see what life is like, see what struggle is like, and not just. Every struggle is different, and Germans and anybody from across the world is always welcome to spend time among Filipino organizers.